If you accept mediocrity, that is exactly what you will get. But when you raise your standards, everything changes. You attract stronger relationships, bigger opportunities, and unshakable confidence. The world meets you at the level you set. But if you settle, you surrender your greatness. Will you demand more from yourself and unlock your true potential? Or let life hand you leftovers? The choice is yours, and it defines everything. In a few moments, you'll learn how raising your standards unlocks everything you desire. Bigger opportunities, stronger relationships, limitless growth. The power of setting high standards. When you decide to set high standards for yourself, everything changes. The way you think, the way you act, the way you respond to challenges. It all transforms. High standards are the silent architects of your destiny. They define what you will accept and what you will refuse. But many people drift through life, accepting mediocrity because they have never demanded more from themselves. They accept average results because they have not set the standard for greatness. But think for a moment. What if you raised your standards today? What if you decided that average is no longer acceptable? You would immediately start to see the world differently. Opportunities that once seemed out of reach would become possibilities. The doors that seemed locked would suddenly open. This is the hidden secret behind every great achievement. A relentless commitment to higher standards. Imagine you are standing at a crossroads. One path leads to comfort and ease, the familiar territory where you accept things as they are. The other path leads to challenge and growth, a journey where you demand more from yourself and refuse to settle for anything less. Which path will you choose? Cornelius Vanderbilt started with nothing but a vision of what he wanted. His standard was simple. He would be the best, no matter the cost. Through sheer determination and a refusal to accept mediocrity, he built an empire in shipping and railroads, becoming one of the wealthiest men of his time. He did not accept average. He demanded excellence, and the world had no choice but to comply. Now, ask yourself, what standards have you set for your life? Are you demanding the best from yourself, or are you accepting what comes easily? If you find yourself settling, it is time to raise your standards. When you do, you change the course of your life. Higher standards force you to develop new skills, seek out better opportunities, and align with people who expect more from you. The only question left is, are you ready to set a new standard for your life? If so, the journey begins now. Breaking free from limiting beliefs, the most formidable prison is one we cannot see, the fortress of belief that confines our potential. Within these invisible walls, dreams wither and possibilities shrink, all because we've accepted limitations as truth. Roger Bannister's medical experts declared the 4-minute mile physically impossible, warning it would damage the human heart. Yet Bannister refused to accept their verdict. When he crossed that finish line at 3:59.4, he didn't just break a record. He shattered a collective mental barrier. Within just 46 days, Australian John Landy beat Bannister's time. Within 3 years, 16 runners had accomplished what was once deemed impossible. This pattern repeats throughout human history. The Wright brothers took flight when aviation experts insisted heavier-than-air machines could never fly. Thomas Edison tested over 10,000 materials before creating the light bulb, while critics called his pursuit foolish. Kathleen Switzer ran the Boston Marathon when women were considered physically incapable of the distance. Your limiting beliefs speak in familiar voices. I'm not talented enough. I'm too old to start. People like me don't succeed at this. These thoughts aren't facts. They're stories you've internalized from past experiences, childhood messages, societal expectations, or previous failures. The brain forms neural pathways through repetition. Each time you think, I can't, you strengthen that belief. But neuroplasticity works both ways. You can deliberately create new pathways through conscious effort and repetition of empowering thoughts. Begin by identifying your limiting beliefs. Listen to your internal dialogue, especially when facing challenges. What excuses consistently appear? What stories do you tell yourself about why you cannot achieve your dreams? Next, question these beliefs mercilessly. Is there objective evidence supporting them, or have you simply accepted them as truth? For each limiting belief, find counterexamples. people who've succeeded despite similar obstacles. Replace limiting beliefs with empowering alternatives. Instead of "I'm too old," try "My experience gives me advantages others don't have." Instead of "I always fail," try "Each attempt teaches me something valuable." Take small, consistent actions that contradict your limiting beliefs. Every step forward weakens their hold and reinforces your new, empowering mindset. Remember that breaking free is not a single event, but a practice. Old beliefs will resurface, especially during challenges. When they do, recognize them for what they are: echoes of an outdated operating system, not your true potential. Your greatest achievements await on the other side of these self-imposed boundaries. The question is not whether you can break free, but whether you're willing to try. Mastering the art of consistency, greatness, isn't an accident, but an accumulation. Countless small actions compounded over time into extraordinary achievement. While many fixate on dramatic breakthroughs, true mastery emerges through the quiet power of showing up day after day after day. Consider water's remarkable capacity to transform landscapes. The Grand Canyon wasn't carved through sudden force, but through water's patient persistence over millions of years. Similarly, your most meaningful accomplishments will rarely come from heroic bursts of effort, but from sustained, deliberate practice. Andrew Carnegie's rise from impoverished immigrant to industrial titan exemplifies this principle. Beginning as a bobbin boy earning $1.20 weekly, Carnegie didn't experience overnight success. Instead, he methodically climbed through positions at the Telegraph Company and Pennsylvania Railroad, mastering each role before advancing. When he finally entered the steel industry, it was his consistent application of the Bessemer process that revolutionized production, while others hesitated to adopt new methods. Neuroscience reveals why consistency holds such transformative power. Each time you repeat an action, the myelin sheath surrounding those neural pathways strengthens, making execution progressively easier and more automatic. This biological process explains why initial progress often feels painfully slow. Your brain is literally building new infrastructure. The challenge lies not in understanding consistency's importance, but in practicing it when motivation inevitably wanes. Motivation is inherently unstable, fluctuating with mood, energy, and circumstances. Relying on motivation alone guarantees eventual failure. Instead, successful people develop systems that make consistency possible regardless of emotional state. Equally critical is the minimum viable effort approach. Rather than aiming for perfect performance each day, commit to showing up even in reduced capacity. On difficult days, a 5-minute workout or writing 50 words preserves the consistency chain while honoring your current limitations. Track your consistency visibly. Jerry Seinfeld's "Don't Break the Chain" method, marking a calendar each day you maintain your practice, creates powerful psychological momentum. Few forces are more motivating than seeing your unbroken streak of consistency. Perhaps most important is redefining consistency itself. Perfection isn't the goal. Persistence is. When you inevitably miss a day, the crucial skill becomes starting again immediately, without self-punishment. Champions aren't those who never fall, but those who continuously return to their practice. The question isn't whether consistency works. History proves it does. The question is whether you're willing to embrace the unglamorous daily work that precedes extraordinary results. Will you continue when progress seems imperceptible? Will you trust the process when others demand shortcuts? Your answer determines not just what you'll achieve, but who you'll become. The power of resilience. Life rarely unfolds according to plan. Between where you stand and where you aim to be lies a landscape riddled with unexpected detours, formidable barriers, and moments of crushing disappointment. Yet within this challenging terrain, resilience emerges as the defining quality of those who ultimately succeed, not because they avoid failure, but because they refuse to be defined by it. Thomas Edison's relentless pursuit of the incandescent light bulb. Each failed experiment represented not just wasted materials, but potentially wasted years. When journalists framed his journey as a series of failures, Edison famously reframed the narrative. I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. This profound perspective shift transformed what others saw as repeated defeat into a methodical elimination process leading inevitably toward breakthrough. Resilience isn't merely enduring hardship. It's the capacity to extract meaning from suffering and convert setbacks into strategic advantage. Viktor Frankl, surviving the unimaginable horrors of Nazi concentration camps, discovered that those who maintained an inner purpose amid external chaos demonstrated remarkable survival rates. His observation that when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves captures resilience's transformative power. Three practices distinguish the exceptionally resilient. First, they practice realistic optimism, acknowledging difficult truths while maintaining faith in their capacity to overcome. Second, they cultivate cognitive flexibility, the ability to reframe setbacks as temporary and specific rather than permanent and pervasive. Third, they build support networks that provide both emotional sustenance and honest feedback. Perhaps most importantly, resilient individuals recognize that struggle itself contains inherent value. Just as muscles grow stronger through resistance training, character develops through adversity. The Japanese art of kintsugi, repairing broken pottery with gold-infused lacquer, provides a powerful metaphor. Rather than disguising breaks, kintsugi highlights them, creating something more beautiful and valuable precisely because it has been broken and mended. The question facing you isn't whether you'll encounter obstacles. That's guaranteed. The question is whether you will allow these inevitable challenges to diminish or develop you. Will you retreat into bitterness when plans collapse, or will you extract wisdom from wreckage? Will you abandon worthy goals at the first significant resistance, or will you adapt your approach while maintaining your direction? Remember, resilience isn't about never falling. It's about rising one more time than you fall. And in that persistent rising lies the difference between a life of frustration and a legacy of triumph. The importance of self-belief, the most powerful force shaping your destiny, isn't your circumstances, connections, or even your capabilities. It's your belief in what's possible. Self-belief operates as both catalyst and sustainer, transforming potential into performance and dreams into reality. Without this fundamental conviction in your own capacity, even extraordinary talents lie dormant. But with it, seemingly ordinary individuals routinely accomplish the extraordinary. Mary Kay Ash, age 45. When many contemplate retirement, she invested her life savings of $5,000 0 cents to launch a cosmetics company after experiencing gender discrimination throughout her career. Despite her son's lawyer advising against the venture and facing a business landscape overwhelmingly dominated by men, her unwavering self-belief propelled her forward. That single storefront grew into a multi-billion-dollar enterprise, spanning over 35 countries and creating opportunities for millions of women entrepreneurs. When asked about her success formula, Ash consistently emphasized belief. If you think you can, you can. And if you think you can't, you're right. The paradox of self-belief is that it must precede evidence. You must believe in your capacity before you've proven it, which requires courage. Many wait for validation before believing, not realizing this inverts the natural order of achievement. As Henry Ford noted, whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. Cultivating self-belief begins with conscious language management. Notice how often you use phrases like, I can't, that's impossible, or I'm not good enough. Replace these with empowering alternatives. I'm learning how. I'll find a way. I'm improving daily. Your subconscious mind constantly absorbs your verbal and mental declarations, treating them as instructions for reality creation. Equally important is surrounding yourself with belief reinforcers, people who see your potential even when you momentarily lose sight of it. One supportive voice can sustain you through inevitable periods of doubt. Perhaps most critical is taking belief-lined action. Self-belief without accompanying behavior remains mere wishful thinking. Each action consistent with your vision solidifies your belief, creating tangible evidence supporting your internal conviction. The question isn't whether self-belief works. History unequivocally confirms it does. The real question is whether you'll exercise your power to believe. Will you accept artificial limitations? Or will you dare to believe in possibilities beyond current evidence? Will you wait for perfect conditions, or will you proceed with the audacity that has defined every great achiever? Your potential awaits your belief to activate it. The time to believe is now. The discipline of focus. In a world engineered for distraction, your ability to focus has become your most precious resource. While attention scatters easily across news cycles and novelty, extraordinary achievement demands sustained concentration on what matters most. Focus transforms scattered potential into concentrated power, the difference between diffused sunlight and a laser beam capable of cutting through steel. The human mind, remarkable as it is, fundamentally operates as a single-channel processor. Neuroscience reveals we don't actually multitask. We rapidly switch attention, each transition exacting a cognitive toll. A University of California study found that after each interruption, workers require an average of 23 minutes to fully regain concentration. These productivity taxes compound daily, transforming potentially profound work into fragmented mediocrity. While J.P. Morgan contemporaries dispersed energy across multiple ventures, Morgan maintained relentless focus on building financial infrastructure. This singular concentration enabled him to orchestrate massive industrial consolidations, restructure failing railroads, and establish banking systems that transformed commerce. During the Panic of 1907, when Wall Street teetered toward collapse, Morgan sequestered competing bankers in his library and refused to let them leave until they crafted a solution. His legendary focus literally saving the American economy. Focus operates on three critical levels. First, strategic focus determines which mountains you'll climb, which goals warrant your precious attention. Second, tactical focus organizes your days and weeks to advance those priorities. Third, operational focus governs your moment-by-moment attention management, protecting your cognitive resources from the 1,000 distractions lying in ambush. Perhaps most importantly, recognize that focus follows passion. When genuinely aligned with meaningful work, maintaining concentration becomes less effortful. This explains why someone distracted during mundane tasks can become utterly absorbed in activities that ignite their curiosity. True focus flows naturally when you've identified work worth doing. How much of your day passes in distracted half-attention? How many potentially transformative projects remain unfinished while you respond to minor urgencies? What greatness might emerge if you directed your full cognitive resources toward your most important priorities? The coming revolution belongs to those who cultivate focus in an age of distraction. The question isn't whether focused attention works, rather whether you're willing to defend this precious resource as vigilantly as you would any other irreplaceable asset. Will you continue surrendering your attention to whatever shouts loudest, or will you reclaim it for what matters most? The art of decision-making life unfolds through the gateway of choice. Each decision, whether monumental or seemingly trivial, shapes your reality with cumulative power that few forces can match, while some drift passively through existence, surrendering their path to circumstance or others' expectations. Masters of decision-making actively architect their destiny through deliberate choices that reflect their deepest values and boldest aspirations. The quality of your decisions ultimately determines the quality of your life. This isn't philosophical abstraction, but practical reality. Your health, relationships, career, and fulfillment all crystallize from the thousands of decisions you've made and continue to make daily. Andrew Mellon's conventional wisdom dismissed aluminum as an impractical curiosity, too expensive for commercial viability. Mellon made the courageous decision to finance the Pittsburgh Reduction Company. While competitors hesitated, paralyzed by uncertainty, Mellon's decisive backing helped revolutionize manufacturing, transportation, and consumer goods through aluminum's widespread adoption. His decisiveness extended beyond aluminum. His banking decisions rescued countless enterprises during economic downturns, while his art acquisition decisions ultimately created the National Gallery of Art. Effective decision-making operates on three critical levels. First, values-based decisions establish your fundamental priorities. what truly matters in your life. Second, strategic decisions determine your direction and resource allocation. Third, tactical decisions address daily implementation. Mastery requires alignment across all three levels, ensuring your moment by moment choices advance your highest priorities. Neuroscience reveals that decision fatigue undermines judgment. Each decision depletes cognitive resources, degrading subsequent choices. This explains why even brilliant individuals make poor decisions when mentally exhausted. Counterintuitively, creating decision frameworks and routines doesn't restrict freedom but preserves it for truly consequential matters. 5 practices distinguish exceptional decision makers. First, they clarify their values, creating filters that automatically eliminate options misaligned with core principles. Second, they gather sufficient but not excessive information, avoiding analysis paralysis. Third, they consult trusted advisors while maintaining decisional responsibility. Fourth, they establish decision deadlines, preventing indefinite deliberation. Fifth, they commit fully once decided, channeling energy into implementation rather than second guessing. Perhaps most importantly, they recognize that indecision itself constitutes a decision, often the worst possible one. As Theodore Roosevelt noted, in any moment of decision, the best thing you can do is the right thing, the next best thing is the wrong thing, and the worst thing you can do is nothing. Reflect honestly. How often do you postpone decisions hoping for perfect clarity that never arrived? How many opportunities have vanished while you hesitated? How much mental energy do you waste revisiting undecided matters? Decision-making muscle strengthens through deliberate exercise. Begin with smaller decisions made promptly and definitively. Graduate to consequential choices using structured approaches like pro-con analysis or decision matrices. With practice, you'll develop the decisive instinct that characterizes exceptional leaders. The most empowering realization is that while you cannot control outcomes, you maintain absolute sovereignty over your decisions. Will you exercise this profound power deliberately or surrender it through passivity and procrastination? Your answer to this question may be the most important decision you ever make. The strength of self-discipline, the distance between aspiration and achievement, is bridged by a single quality, self-discipline. While talent creates possibility and strategy provides direction, only disciplined execution transforms potential into reality. This force, the ability to consistently choose long-term fulfillment over immediate gratification, separates those who merely dream from those who deliberately create their destinies. Self-discipline operates as a keystone habit, strengthening every aspect of performance. Neuroscience confirms this through studies of willpower as a trainable resource. Each disciplined choice literally strengthens neural pathways associated with focus and impulse control. This creates a virtuous cycle where discipline begets greater discipline, compounding your capacity for achievement across all domains. Cecil Rhodes, born to a modest clergy family as one of 11 children, Rhodes arrived in South Africa at age 17 with fragile health and limited resources. While others sought quick fortunes in diamond fields, Rhodes methodically studied the industry, recognizing that consolidation would create unprecedented value. Despite setbacks that would have derailed less disciplined individuals, including nearly fatal heart conditions, Rhodes systematically acquired claims and established De Beers, eventually controlling 90% of global diamond production. His disciplined persistence extended beyond business, pursuing education at Oxford despite his commercial responsibilities, and establishing the Rhodes Scholarship that continues developing leaders over a century later. This pattern of disciplined persistence characterizes achievement across domains. Olympic athletes maintain training schedules regardless of motivation fluctuations. Writers produce pages daily whether inspiration strikes or not. Entrepreneurs persist through innumerable rejections before breakthrough. Their common denominator isn't extraordinary willpower, but ordinary willpower applied with extraordinary consistency. Self-discipline manifests through 3 essential practices. First, clarify compelling purposes that make discipline meaningful rather than mechanical. Connecting daily actions to deeper values creates intrinsic motivation that sustains effort when willpower falters. Second, design environments that make disciplined choices easier. Removing temptations proves more effective than repeatedly resisting them. Third, develop recovery rituals that replenish depleted willpower. Even elite performers require strategic renewal through adequate sleep, nutrition, exercise, and periodic disconnection. Perhaps most importantly, recognize that discipline isn't about perfection, but persistence. The disciplined person isn't immune to failure, but recovers quickly, maintaining forward momentum despite inevitable setbacks. Reflect honestly. How often do you surrender worthy goals at the first sign of difficulty? How frequently do momentary comforts derail your most important commitments? What achievements remain unrealized because discipline faltered when determination should have deepened? Developing self-discipline begins with small, consistent victories. Meeting the alarm clock's first ring, completing promised tasks without reminders, maintaining commitments to yourself with the same fidelity you would show to others. These seemingly minor triumphs cultivate the disciplined mind required for major achievement. The fundamental question isn't whether you're capable of discipline, you are, but whether you're willing to embrace short-term discomfort for long-term mastery. Will you continue surrendering to impulse, or will you develop the disciplined character that makes achievement inevitable rather than occasional? Building unshakable confidence at the core of every extraordinary achievement lies an invisible force, confidence that transcends circumstance. While talent and strategy matter, nothing amplifies potential more powerfully than unwavering belief in your capabilities. This isn't abstract psychology, but practical reality. Confidence physiologically alters performance by regulating stress hormones, optimizing cognitive function, and enhancing physical coordination. True confidence arises not from external validation, but from internal cultivation. A deliberate practice of personal trust building. Each time you honor commitments to yourself, confront challenges directly, or recover from setbacks, you deposit evidence into your confidence reservoir. These accumulated experiences forge unshakable self-trust that withstands inevitable challenges. Richard Arkwright, born the youngest of 13 children to impoverished parents, Arkwright received minimal education and began life as a barber's apprentice. Despite lacking formal training, financial resources, or social connections, he recognized opportunities in textile manufacturing that others overlooked. When his early spinning frame prototypes faced skepticism and active resistance from threatened competitors, Arkwright persisted. His conviction proved warranted. His water frame revolutionized textile production, establishing the factory system that defined the Industrial Revolution and transforming Arkwright from penniless barber to knighted industrialist. This pattern repeats throughout history. Marie Curie pursued radioactivity research despite academic exclusion based on gender. Henry Ford continued refining the assembly line despite multiple business failures. Rosa Parks maintained dignity through civil disobedience despite systemic intimidation. Their common denominator wasn't absence of doubt, but refusal to be defined by it. Building unshakable confidence requires deliberate practice across 4 dimensions. First, develop competence through deliberate skill building. Confidence without capability becomes dangerous delusion. Second, maintain perspective through realistic optimism, acknowledging challenges while focusing on solutions rather than problems. Third, practice courageous action. Despite discomfort, confidence follows behavior rather than preceding it. Fourth, cultivate resilient self-talk, replacing internal criticism with supportive yet honest self-coaching. Reflect candidly. How often do you diminish your capabilities through self-limiting narrative? How frequently do you abandon worthy pursuits at the first sign of difficulty? What might become possible if you approach challenges with unshakable belief in your capacity to either succeed or learn something valuable? Developing confidence begins with identifying your inner saboteur, the voice that underestimates your abilities and magnifies potential failures. When this voice surfaces, challenge it with evidence of past successes, however modest. Remember that confidence accumulates gradually through consistent small victories rather than occasional dramatic triumph. The fundamental question isn't whether you occasionally feel doubt, everyone does, but whether you allow temporary uncertainty to dictate permanent limitations. Will you continue surrendering to apprehension, or will you cultivate the courageous confidence that transforms aspirations into achievements? The world indeed bends before those who approach it with unshakable confidence, not because reality changes, but because confident individuals persistently seek solutions where others see only obstacles. Embracing change as a pathway to growth, change arrives uninvited, yet inevitable, transforming landscapes, disrupting equilibriums, and challenging comfortable certainties. Many instinctively resist these shifts, clinging to familiar patterns despite their limitations. Yet history reveals an unmistakable pattern. Those who thrive aren't necessarily the strongest or most intelligent, but those most responsive to change. Adaptability, the capacity to adjust beliefs, behaviors, and strategies in response to shifting realities, represents humanity's most essential evolutionary advantage. Charles Goodyear is facing financial ruin after his hardware store failed during an economic depression. Goodyear became obsessed with solving rubber's fundamental flaw, its tendency to melt in summer heat and crack in winter cold. Despite no formal chemistry training, mounting debts, and frequent imprisonment for those debts, Goodyear persisted through hundreds of failed experiments. His family often went hungry as he redirected scarce resources toward his obsession. After 5 years of relentless experimentation, a fortuitous accident, spilling rubber mixed with sulfur onto a hot stove, revealed the vulcanization process that revolutionized manufacturing. Though Goodyear died $200,000, 0 cents in debt, his willingness to embrace constant change and failure ultimately transformed transportation, industrial processes, and countless products we rely upon today. Neuroscience explains why change provokes such resistance. Your brain, designed primarily for survival, inherently conserves energy by favoring established neural pathways. Novel situations trigger the amygdala's threat response, releasing stress hormones that narrow thinking precisely when adaptability demands expanded perspective. Yet paradoxically, this same neuroplasticity represents your greatest strength. Each time you successfully navigate change, you literally rewire neural connections, making future adaptation progressively easier. Growth happens not despite discomfort, but because of it. Just as physical muscles develop through the stress of resistance training, cognitive and emotional resilience strengthen through navigating unfamiliar territory. This explains why periods of greatest personal development typically coincide with significant life transitions, whether chosen or thrust upon you. 3 practices distinguish those who leverage change for growth. First, cultivate mental flexibility through perspective taking, regularly challenging assumptions and viewing situations through multiple frames. Second, develop emotional agility, acknowledging difficult feelings while preventing them from dictating behavior. Third, practice deliberate discomfort, intentionally seeking growth-oriented challenges rather than waiting for change to arrive uninvited. Reflect honestly. How often do you resist necessary changes out of fear? How frequently do you interpret challenges as threats rather than invitations to evolve? What potential remains dormant because you prioritize comfort over transformation? The fundamental question isn't whether change will come, it always does, but whether you'll harness its transformative potential. Will you continue resisting the inevitable, or will you embrace change as the very catalyst your growth requires? The power of accountability. The difference between those who merely dream and those who achieve lies not in their talents or opportunities, but in their commitment to accountability. This invisible force, the willingness to answer for your actions and outcomes, transforms fleeting intentions into tangible results. Without accountability, goals remain perpetually in progress. With it, they become inevitable achievements. Accountability operates through 2 powerful mechanisms. First, it creates a psychological commitment that makes abandonment more difficult than perseverance. Second, it establishes feedback loops that illuminate blind spots and accelerate course corrections. Together, these mechanisms create the conditions where sustained progress becomes not just possible, but probable. John D. Rockefeller's methodical rise to unprecedented wealth. Beginning as a bookkeeper at age 16, Rockefeller demonstrated extraordinary accountability before accumulating extraordinary resources. While others in the chaotic early oil industry operated haphazardly, Rockefeller implemented rigorous accounting systems that tracked every cent spent and earned. His famous ledger books, maintained throughout his life, recorded not just business transactions, but personal expenditures with meticulous precision. This commitment to financial accountability revealed inefficiencies invisible to competitors, allowing Standard Oil to refine petroleum for 2.5 cents per gallon when competitors required 3 cents, a seemingly small difference that, at scale, created overwhelming competitive advantage. Rockefeller's accountability extended beyond finances to personal discipline, rising at precisely 6:20 a.m. daily and maintaining meticulous habits. He approached self-accountability with religious devotion. When asked about his success formula, Rockefeller emphasized, "I believe it is a religious duty to get all the money you can, fairly and honestly, to keep all you can." This comprehensive accountability framework transformed him from modest beginnings into history's first billionaire. 3 practices distinguish high accountability individuals. First, they create concrete measurement systems. Vague aspirations become specific targets with clear metrics and timelines. Second, they establish supportive structures, whether accountability